my little slice of the wisdom pie that I've done with my collaborators Eli Finkel and Jody Davis is looking at what psychologists have called affective forecasting, which is simply how well do we predict how we are going to emotionally respond to events. And it turns out that we are rather poor at it. That past work has shown that we typically overestimate both the intensity and the duration of our feelings. Now, most past work has been confined largely to events that simply happen to us. So one of the most popular paradigms is an election, because you know years in advance when this election is going to occur, and usually there's only two viable options. So we ask you, how are you going to feel if Obama wins, if Obama loses, and then we ask you on election night, now how do you feel? Or 6 months later, now how do you feel? We are interested in these choices that people make. Do I forgive my partner for that offense, or do I not forgive my partner? Do I choose to cooperate, or do I choose to compete? And many of these have both positive and negative aspects to them. But we're interested in whether or not these affective forecasting mistakes extend to these sorts of behaviors. We are interested in interpersonal affective forecasting. This really hasn't been looked at before, but by interpersonal forecasting we mean not only how am I going to respond to my choices, but how are you going to respond? How are you going to feel when I decide to forgive or not forgive, when I decide to compete or cooperate? So several of our research questions are, do affective forecasting errors, that is kind of overestimating the extent and duration of our emotions, does that extend to these moral decisions? Do interpersonal forecasting errors exist? Who is wise? That is, what are the personality characteristics associated with people who are particularly accurate? And are wise people happier, both intra and interpersonally? So I'm going to talk about, we're coming at this from several different angles. I'm going to talk about two lab experiments and one longitudinal study. This first study is complete or mostly complete, so I'll focus on that one. Involves the prisoner's dilemma game. We have one that involves giving to charity, and then perhaps the centerpiece of our work is a longitudinal study that we started just last month. I assume most of you are familiar with the prisoner's dilemma. You have these two choices. You can choose to cooperate with somebody or compete against them, and there's motives or incentives to go either way. Typically you get a matrix of numbers, often that corresponds to actual money, and you have to decide, should I be a nice person and cooperate? Am I worried about the other person competing against me? And so it's been used in all sorts of different kinds of behavioral research. So in this study we are asking people at one time period, how would you feel if you unexpectedly received $5 and then you were presented with the opportunity to give it to charity or not give it to charity? So we asked them, first of all, what would you do? What do you think you would do in this situation? And for each possibility, how happy would you feel? How guilty would you feel? But for things like this, choices whether to cooperate or compete, choices whether to forgive or not forgive, it's how you're imagining you will feel about it that will affect whether you forgive or don't forgive. And so it's possible that we might be cooperating less and competing more due to these forecasting errors. If we really had a better sense of how we felt, we might be nicer people. Basically, why we find this work so interesting is, as I said, we may choose to volunteer, to cheat, to donate, to avenge, or to forgive based on these affective forecasts, and these forecasts may be quite inaccurate. So again, one small part of wisdom may be attending to becoming more accurate forecasters, becoming more accurate interpersonal forecasters that might increase wisdom.